Guys, make some noise for Dave Smith. Dave, wherever you are, work your way up to the stage.
Dave Smith.
Where is Dave at?
He's right behind you, Pat.
My man.
Pat, how are you,
Good seeing you, buddy. Very good to see you. So, Dave, we're coming right at you. If we can hand over a mic to Dave. Who loves Dave Smith, by the way? Anybody loves Dave Smith? I love it. So do we. Very smart. Dave, what's
Hello,
your
sir.
position? Are you skeptical? Are you optimistic? Are you pessimistic? Where are you at?
I am very confident that the winner of the 2024 election will be Israel. No, I'm sorry. That was my internal thought. It's such a weird election because, and I bet you guys feel this way too, right? Everything that you can observe with your senses, everything you can see, touch, taste, feel, tells you Donald Trump is running away with this thing. But we saw what happened in 2020, and who knows, Donald Trump's enemies are the most powerful entrenched interests in the history of the world, and they got tricks up their sleeves like none of us can imagine. So I wouldn't take anything for granted. It seems Pennsylvania is the big one, man. That's what it's going to come down to. If he can win Pennsylvania, I think he wins this thing.
Say that again. If he
wins Pennsylvania, I think Donald Trump is president again.
Okay, so Dave, you guys had a libertarian convention, right? Which Trump attended.
Yes.
Okay. Libertarians, majority of libertarians, some of them are going to vote libertarian, some of them are going to go for Trump. Yourself, you're a candidate that a lot of people want to see you run for president. We've talked about this multiple times, where when I talk to people that want to see you run as a candidate for libertarians, whoever's running today, everybody forgot his name. I'm not being disrespectful. Nobody remembers his name. They're kind of hoping for you to run. How many libertarians in this 2024 election gave up their libertarian vote and gave it to Trump?
Okay, so there are, broadly speaking, there are people who identify as libertarian, and then there are people who are members of the Libertarian Party. In terms of like libertarians in America, I think the overwhelming majority voted for Donald Trump.
Overwhelmingly.
And I would say amongst Libertarian Party members, even a huge chunk of them voted for Trump.
So, by the way, for you, like what area, if you were to say right now, between Kamala and Trump, you'll be critical with anybody and everybody, right? What area of Trump's campaign are you critical with, where you're like, this is the area that I'm not comfortable with, and did you end up voting for Trump?
Well, I'll answer the second one first. Yes, I did. I ended up voting for him. But listen, don't even clap for me. I had no choice. He's running against some hoe. What was I going to do? But listen, all right, I'm sorry. I'm coming out a little bit loose.
The ludicrous in you came out, but...
listen, Kamala Harris is, and I'm not just saying this because it's election night, and I know this will be, like, the crowd will like it, but she is the worst candidate I've ever seen run for major office in any party. It's insane. Like, if I just put it, forget even how you feel about it, if I just put it down on paper for you, and I was like, okay, listen, there's a candidate, and she's the nominee for the Democrats, and you'd go like, well, how did she win the primary? And I go, no, she didn't win a primary. She ran a presidential campaign 4 years ago and did so bad that she didn't make it to Iowa. She did worse than Pete Buttigieg. Yeah, you remember the 5-foot gay guy? She lost to him, okay? Not only did she's walked away from everything she was running on for president in 2020. She's not running on any of that anymore. She's also not running on her legacy as vice president, and she has no reason for why. Her answer to everything is that she grew up in a middle-class family, which is not special. I grew up in a middle-class family. I shouldn't be fucking president because of that. Like, she is... Look, a vote for Kamala Harris is just a vote for the machine. And Trump is not perfect. He's got his flaws. I've got a lot of criticisms of his first administration. I got a lot of criticisms of the campaign he's run this year. But he does exist. He is a real person, and we will have a president if he's the president. And if she's the president, we have what we have right now, which is no president, and the machine gets whatever it wants. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but the machine is the military-industrial complex. That's what you're voting for if you vote for Kamala Harris. And so, fuck that.
But I got a question for you, Dave. Here's a question for you. And you as well, Brian, and anybody else wants to comment on this. You said military-industrial complex. You said military-industrial complex. Guys, a story came out. Very important to hear this story. From Russia, here's what the story is. Trump could be assassinated if he tries to end the war in Ukraine. This story came out today from Dmitry Medvedev, former president of Russia and Putin's ally, warned that if Trump really tries to stop the war with Russia and Ukraine, he could face a JFK assassination style. Medvedev declared he won't be able to stop the war, not in a day, not in 3 months, and if Trump pursued peace, he could become the new JFK. Medvedev also said to Kamala Harris, calling her stupid, inexperienced, and controllable. How do you respond to this story?
I mean, I can't imagine anyone would actually try to assassinate Donald Trump. Oh, wait, they already did. Oh, but I couldn't imagine anybody who was involved in the Ukraine war effort would try to assassinate Donald Trump. Oh, wait, that's exactly who did. By the way, do you know, guys, you know that Donald Trump's second assassination attempt, okay? Do you know that that guy was a convicted felon who was convicted for possession of weapons of mass destruction? You can't make this shit up. And he then went to join the Ukrainian war effort and came back to America, and this raised no red flags. Like, dude, you can't have a goddamn parking ticket and get on an international flight without something going off. And by the way, the entire corporate media has had no interest in looking into any of these stories. Nobody is even asking, was he connected to intelligence? What was this guy's background? The first assassination attempt, the one that shot him in the ear, the official story is that they couldn't get into any of his phones and he had no social media footprint. Does anybody in this room believe that there would be a young person who was so politically radicalized that they would try to assassinate a president and they weren't on social media? What are the odds of that? 0? So all I'm saying is that, this is what Medvedev is saying is just obvious. Look, JFK was a threat to the military-industrial complex, and he took a limo ride through Dallas. Nixon was somewhat of a threat to the military-industrial complex, and he was totally set up and removed with Watergate. Donald Trump represents the third great American coup. They framed him for treason for 4 years. The entire corporate media, they actually think you're so fucking stupid that you would believe that Donald Trump was a Russian spy. The most famous person in the world was working for Putin this whole time? Like, how stupid is that? And there's no evidence to back it up. But so, are you saying, listen, they would frame the guy for treason, the sitting president of the United States. They would impeach him twice over nonsense. They tried to lock him up over all just bullshit. And they've already tried to assassinate him multiple times. So of course they would. Their only calculation is whether it's worse for them to do it or not. And if they thought they could get away with it, they would have done it already by now.
If they thought they could get away with it, they would have done a long time ago. Brian,
these people are killers, Pat. They'll kill for money.
Dave, do you have final thoughts on this before we transition away from this story?
Well, look, I mean, if anybody has looked into the history of the Ukrainian-Russian conflict at all, I'll just say this. Vladimir Putin has wanted to make a deal the whole time. The whole time. What's his name? I always butcher his name. he's like Norwegian or something, but the head of NATO, Stoltenberg or something like that, he said, in his own words, he said that Vladimir Putin told NATO that if you just put it in writing that Ukraine will never join NATO, he won't invade. And he bragged about how he said, no, we won't be bullied around by Vladimir Putin. So we said, screw you, we won't put it in writing. And then Vladimir Putin invaded. Okay? What the entire war in Ukraine is about, and I think far too few people in America actually know this, what the entire war is about is that the Russians have determined that it is their red line that Ukraine cannot be a part of NATO. Now, I know in our American head, you might hear that and go, hey, what, they should never get to tell us what we're allowed to do or something like that. But all I'm saying is think about it like this. Can Mexico join China's military alliance? Fuck no, they can't. There's no way we'd allow that to happen. When the communists tried to put nuclear weapons in Cuba, Jack Kennedy said he will blow up the world if they do that. Because, sorry, that was our red line. We cannot have your weaponry in Cuba a few miles off of our coast. We're taking that as a preemptive nuclear attack. And he meant it. And then he got on the phone and he made a deal, and we pulled our missiles back from Turkey, and they pulled their missiles back from Cuba, and we went on. This was Vladimir Putin's point. You can't have your military alliance in our biggest, most strategically important next-door neighbor. Now, I'm sorry, but that is reasonable. That's a reasonable request. And that doesn't mean that you love Vladimir Putin or that you're sworn loyal to him. To just say, hey, why the hell are we even expanding our military alliance to Ukraine? Who cares? And listen, Donald Trump, he always says that war never would have happened if I was president, and I would negotiate an end to this. And I got to say, I think he's right about that. I don't think the war would have happened if he was president. I think he will negotiate an end to it. I don't think he's right that Hamas wouldn't have attacked Israel if he was president. That seems kind of ridiculous to me. But he's right. If the Ukraine war could be over tomorrow if America wanted to negotiate a peace to it. Vladimir Putin's been trying to the entire time.
So in other words, what you're saying is most likely Trump's going to be able to pull it off.
I think, well, the question there becomes who does Donald Trump put around him? If Donald Trump puts Mike Pompeo, a.k.a. Liz Cheney's pick for defense secretary, if he puts John Bolton, a.k.a. Hillary Clinton's pick for national security advisor, then maybe not. Then maybe it doesn't happen. But if he listens to Tucker Carlson and Bobby Kennedy and Vivek Ramaswamy and all the smart people around him, then yes, he could negotiate an end to that war.
So all these guys, and the morale of the military today, they don't want to go deploy. They want to stay here and fight here and take care home first.
Dave, do you agree? Do you agree what he's saying?
Look, I mean, I think there's no question. Every military guy who I talk to, every single one of them, I talk to a lot of them, they're all totally demoralized on the mission. And they know, I mean, they know better than everybody else that all of these wars, the terror wars of the last 20 years, were all nonsense,
Afghanistan was horrible.
Look, I mean, we got hit on 9/11 by a group of Sunni radicals, and then we went around the Middle East overthrowing regimes that had nothing to do with it, or trying to and then losing. The Taliban didn't hit us on 9/11. The special ops had taken out the Al-Qaeda camps by Christmas of 2001. And then the next 20 years we spent fighting a regime change war against the Taliban, who was essentially as guilty as a landlord who rented an apartment to a murderer.
Well,
like that was basically their crime.
I want to show a clip of somebody Dave is a very, very big fan of. Very big fan of. Rob, if you can play this clip by Liz Cheney, if you don't mind. I know Dave's a massive fan of Liz Cheney. If you have the audio is good, you can already see the reaction. Please play this clip from this incredible show called The View. Go ahead, Rob.
So I have a question. Are you also a lawyer?
Yeah. I am.
So you could conceivably be a great AG if this was... Because, and I say this because your moral core is magnificent. Well, and I know you probably don't want it, you don't want to think about it, but I just feel like I would feel a lot better with you leading the FBI, the CIA, the NBC, the LMNT, everybody. That's just me. So I'm just saying, should it be floated? Please think about it.
And under the radar.
We have to get Vice President Harris elected tomorrow.
Yes.
It's really like.
Well, you know, I'm being.
You're putting it out there in the universe.
I'm putting it in the universe.
Manifest.
Because that's how we do things. Go ahead.
Pause. Okay, so, Dave, big fan. Tell us why you like Liz Cheney as much as you do.
Well, okay, listen, isn't that enough right there to be like, your side deserves to lose forever? I mean, just that. Listen, first of all, Whoopi Goldberg talking about your moral compass. Did any of you guys ever seen the clip when she defended Roman Polanski? And she literally says what he did wasn't rape. Roman Polanski raped a 13-year-old. And she publicly defended him on the air and said it wasn't rape. It was statutory rape.
She's 13. She was 13.
13 is
okay.
considered not
Until it's
rape
your
to
daughter.
Whoopi. So that's, look, man, the Cheneys are your center of your moral compass. The people who are in the business of murdering babies. Like, that's your... And listen, the only thing, by the way, I know it's election day and everyone's just all in for their people, and I understand that. But I just hope if you guys keep this in mind, okay? You know how much you hate Whoopi Goldberg, who's praising Liz Cheney right now? Okay, Liz Cheney is Hillary Clinton, is Nikki Haley, is Mike Pompeo, is all of the neocon warhawks. They're exactly the same. And just so you understand, who the neoconservatives are the American vanguard of the Israeli lobby. That's who they are, okay? Now, you may know that or you may not know that, but I promise you, go read some books about it, and I'm right. Fuck all of these wars. America is not threatened by anyone, okay? We have 2 giant oceans around us, a gigantic nuclear arsenal, and the most badass military force in the history of the world. No one poses a threat to us. The idea that anyone can even convince you that Iran poses some threat to the United States of America, the country that doesn't have nuclear weapons or an air force capable of delivering them here if they were to develop them, all these wars are bullshit. Fuck the wars, support peace and free markets and laissez-faire government and prosperity. That's the key to American success. It's why we're the greatest country in the world. And man, listen, even if Trump does win today, and I really hope he wins, I hope he wins within the next half hour so I can go get some sleep. But even if Trump wins, I hope you guys know that's just the beginning. That's the very beginning of the fight to save this country. And the next step is keeping all of the war hawks out of Donald Trump's administration. Liz Cheney should be launched to the freaking moon and never allowed back in America.
There's a guy that could do that, by the way. His name is Elon Musk. He could do that. There's a guy that could do it. His name is Elon Musk.
And we got a rocket expert on our team now.
By the way,
we might be
Matt,
able to.
Listen, when military guys who serve an oath, it's a fight against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And we believe, a lot of military veterans believe that the threat right now is domestic, not necessarily foreign.
And just to back that up, listen, if you read any of the founding fathers, their big concern was never that we'd be invaded by a foreign hostile power and taken over by them. The inception of our country was destroying the most powerful military in the history of the world at the time, the British Empire, and kicking their butts. Nobody is ever going to take down America. But all of the founders were very concerned that we could take down ourselves. And if you could tell me, if you can honestly right now look in Washington, D.C., and tell me that our biggest threat is some third world backward country with a GDP of less than $1 trillion, get out of here. The biggest threat to American liberty is Washington, D.C., and there's no close second.
2x.
Sammy, can I hold that thought? Because we got Chris Cuomo in, just wants to give us an update from New York, and I'll come to you in a second.
My BFF?
Yeah, we got Dave Smith's best friend on, Chris Cuomo. Chris, if you're on, let's turn on the Zoom with Dave Smith's best friend, Chris Cuomo. Rob, if you're ready, where do we see this handsome guy? Go. I appreciate you, Chris. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank
Amen.
you.
I still don't like him. I'm just kidding.
By the way, I got to tell you, Dave, respectfully, as much as the debate that they had, once it was over, it was the best conversation I was watching you guys have backstage. Okay, so for the
We fist
TV,
fought backstage.
for TV, I have to say there was punches being thrown backstage, but they were actually talking, laughing, and having a good time together. Sammy, please finish your thought and your story you were saying. Can you make some noise and help me bring up Vince Everett Ellison and Candace Owens to the stage? Where are these guys? Oh, there we go. Candace.
Here we go.
Vince, how you doing? How you doing, man? I am right here, Vince. Good to see anybody. You look sharp with your three-piece suit. You look amazing. Grab a seat. I love it. Grab a seat, grab a seat, grab a seat. By the way, this is very important. Do you mind if I tell them your brother, your family? Are you okay if I?
Oh, no, would love to.
So
We're
let
very proud
me
of
tell you guys, Vince's brother is a Fortune 50 CEO. Is it fair?
Yes, Fortune 50.
His brother is the CEO of Lowe's for the last 6 years. You guys ever heard of Lowe's?
That's right.
His brother is the
Hold on, Pat, I'm sorry. You guys were supposed to do my cabinets last week and nobody showed up. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You're funny.
I'll deal with this later.
So-
I'll give him a call for you.
Yeah, so,
He's already been president, so you can't tell us that he's going to do all of these things when he had the opportunity to do it and he didn't do it. So it's more of a common sense
I
response.
think that's exactly right, but then I think there's a next step to it, right? Which is that, look, for all you guys here who are like Trump people, okay, you're going, but if you could just imagine, say, just the average person, in 2020, Joe Biden had a reasonable sales pitch, which is that he could say, and you got a picture, the election is in November of 2020. So we just went through the year of lockdowns and the riots and all of this craziness, and that comes after the 3 years that preceded it of all the Russia hysteria and all of this. And Joe Biden could say, hey, let's go back to normal. You know, I've been in the Senate for 700 years, and so let's just go back to normal America where things weren't this crazy. And by the way, I'm going to stay in my basement, but he at least had an excuse that it was like, well, there's a pandemic, so I'm doing the responsible thing. That was a very attractive sales pitch to a lot of people who were just, by the end of 2020, tired of all of it. But the problem is, in addition to what Candace was saying, which is absolutely right, then Joe Biden got in. And guess what? We didn't go back to normal. We went to something even crazier than the 4 Trump years were. And then that revealed that the problem wasn't Trump. This whole thing is, listen, Donald Trump is the least interesting thing about what's going on in America right now. He really is. Donald Trump, you can figure out who he is within 5 seconds of looking at him. You're like, okay, he's a self-promoter. He loves to promote himself. He always is on message. He's constantly in sales mode. What's interesting is that this country got to a point where we wanted the biggest middle finger we could find against the establishment. That's what's really interesting. And when you took Trump out, that didn't go away. And it doesn't, honestly, here's the thing that I know no one wants to hear tonight. It doesn't even really matter whether Trump wins or not. What really matters is that this movement against the corruption in Washington, D.C. continues on. That's what, it's much bigger than any one person. But to your point, they don't have that pitch anymore. What are they going to say? We're going back to normal under Kamala Harris?
Right. And I would also add, like, people really don't like celebrity endorsements anymore. You know?
Could I if I could just jump in for a second, I don't feel that we sufficiently trashed Barack Obama, so I just want
Yeah, let's get back to Barack Obama.
Could I just talk about what a disgusting piece of shit who will burn in fucking hell? Who will burn in hell for eternity? The butcherer of Libya and Syria and Yemen, Barack Obama is. That every goddamn time he's campaigning for somebody else, if you're not voting for the person who he wants you to vote for, his answer is that's because you're a terrible person. Every goddamn time. If you don't support Hillary Clinton, it's because you're a sexist. If you don't support Kamala Harris, it's because you're a sexist. Michelle Obama got on stage at the DNC and goes, I know a lot of people are upset by me because when you're a black woman, people don't like when you have a strong opinion. As if the only reason we could be upset with Michelle Obama is because she's black and a woman.
She's a woman?
Listen, okay, allegedly.
Oh, she's a woman?
Allegedly.
Oh,
Sorry?
Let's make
a woman?
Where's our allegedly shirts out there? Make sure we see those in the crowd.
I don't hate the Obamas because they're black or women or a gay dude married to a trans. I have no problem with that, okay? I'm a very accepting libertarian. But my God, the goddamn nerve, the damage that that guy did to this country, and not just with his horrible policies, but the fact that, listen, motherfucker, this country elected you twice. The first time by a landslide. And you have the nerve to turn around and act like this country is some white supremacist country. You two are worth over $100 million. You are amongst the most privileged people in our society. The only thing Barack or Michelle should ever say about America is what a great country we've been to them. Screw those people, man.
And everyone's going to realize what they're doing, and that's what's really scaring them. What do you think it is, Dave?
That's such a good question, because it is, listen, if you look at the media and the political class's reaction to Donald Trump, it's not just that he makes them angry. It's very clear, since 2016, he makes them scared. They're scared of Donald Trump. And they even have these, like, Freudian slips where you saw Mika Brzezinski the other day. She's like, we're all dead. We're all dead if Donald Trump's back in there. And listen, I'll say this. When Donald Trump ran in 2016, I don't know if you guys remember this, but he kept making it a talking point of the campaign that he would say Obama created ISIS. And this freaked everybody out. And all of the journalists were like, what are you talking about? You're not allowed to say that. What do you mean? And he wouldn't back down. He was like, hey, Obama created... Now, it was a little bit of an exaggeration to say Obama created ISIS. The truth is that Obama only armed and funded them. He didn't actually create them, okay? But what Obama and John Brennan, who was the CIA director at the time, did in conjunction with Saudi Arabia and Israel, Trump supporters, is they decided, because they wanted to overthrow the secular dictator, Bashar al-Assad, that they were going to fund and arm al-Qaeda and ISIS in Syria. Now that, under the legal code, is known as treason, with a capital T. Arming the enemy in the time of war. And if you haven't checked, the punishment for that is death. And so when Donald Trump is running and about to be president, and he's on national television saying, these guys committed treason, maybe not in those words, because Donald Trump, you know, he speaks the way Donald Trump does, and he only has like 5 words, and one of them is tremendous, and the other one is loser. And so he just called, but...
Excuse me, Dave Smith. He also has that one. Excuse me.
That they are actually, I think, terrified that he might do, and he was also running on lock her up. I mean, now this might have just been rhetoric to Donald Trump, and in fact, I think it was. I don't think Donald Trump ever really knew how deep the swamp was when he was getting in the first time. I don't think he really had a plan to drain it, but he scared the bejesus out of those people, and they want him nowhere near power. I think they are very worried about what he might do.
Well,
I would just say, like, use history as a guide, right? So, well, first of all, your point about Joe Biden. Look, Joe Biden, this could happen any minute. Joe Biden is so far past the point of being incapacitated for the job that Joe Biden is so old and senile that at any moment he might be removed. I mean this. That could happen any time.
They already said he's crazy.
They already have the power of the presidency. So if Kamala got the power of the presidency, I don't think that changes the equation drastically. But I look at what happened last time. When he won the election in 2016, essentially what they did, right, was that, I mean, they had been spying on his campaign the whole time. They ramped up the investigation, and then they swarmed him with these all the people who double-crossed Donald Trump, all of the awful appointments that he put in. The weakness that Donald Trump has is, everybody says this, supporters and critics alike, he's very subject to flattery. Donald Trump is an egomaniac, and if you tell him how great he is, he loves you. And so what you're going to see is a bunch of never-Trumpers attacking Donald Trump, and then you're going to see a bunch of people like Mike Pompeo, Liz Cheney's pick for defense secretary, going up and bragging about how loyal he is to Donald Trump and telling Donald Trump how awesome he is. So everybody who's a Trump supporter, it's our job from now, assuming he wins till January 20th, to make it clear that we do not support Donald Trump putting any neocon warhawks in his cabinet at all.
I agree.
None of them. Zero.
I 1,000% agree. I think they already have their option B ready to go, which is an infiltration of the Trump campaign, this populist movement. I have been genuinely shocked to see how accepting he has been of the never-Trumpers. And this idea is that it's unity. No, they weren't with you in 2016. They weren't with you in 2020. They weren't with you in 2024. They were with DeSantis. And then at the very end, they're like, oh, never mind, we're with you. And he's suddenly making time for these, like, war hawk neocons.
Such as who?
And I think it is an insult, genuinely. It is an insult.
Who are you talking about, like specific?
I mean, like, I could name a ton of people, but I'll let Dave do that.
Mike Pompeo, David Friedman, those are two to start with right there.
And so when you see that, you're going, is that all it takes? Is just a little bit of flattery? Like, they've been against you from these people were willing to have Hillary Clinton be the president of the United States rather than take a chance on you, and they never changed, not one bit. Not when you were president, they kept attacking you. And suddenly when they realize you are the option, they go, oh, we actually like you. We're going to throw some money your way. And you see Trump, he's so trusting and accepting. He's like, oh, I'm bringing people together. I don't trust that. I just do not trust that. And so my concern is that if this populist movement dies, the tombstone of it will read, flattery will get you everywhere, right? Because it's clearly brought them back into the circle, and I'm worried that he's going to have these people giving him advice. Put this person in the cabinet, put this person in the cabinet, and what you're going to have is essentially Liz Cheney's dream cabinet. So that's my fear. Now, the guard against that is we get him over the finish line, and then we hold his feet to the fire, and we say we won't accept it, just like Dave Smith said. So
you know what I was
still
saying?
optimistic. We just have to be vocal that we're
Right.
not going to accept neocons and never-Trumpers running the Trump show.
How's your position with this situation here?
Well, so specifically with Trump on Israel, I'm sorry, I didn't hear
Trump being able to handle the conflict where there was a division in the conservative movement where some people are such anti-Israel and the others are saying Muslim, Israel, where he's like, nah, I'm going to get both of them. And he was able to get both communities to support him.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, like, Kamala Harris, and you know, a lot of people, like, call her stupid or make fun. And to be honest, I don't know if she's stupid or not. I know that the answers she gives when she's asked questions are stupid, but the vibe that I get from Kamala Harris is that she is desperately afraid of you figuring out who she really is. And so she's always trying to, like, let me just get through this, say words until it goes back to you, and then and in a sense, right, what she's doing with the Israel-Palestine question is she's going, I'm on all sides. I don't know. I mean, hey, you know, young leftist who's protesting the war, I'm with you. But hey, Jewish Israeli supporter, I'm also with you. I want all of your votes. she's not able to pull it off. Donald Trump somehow is able to pull off people
Why do you
projecting.
think? Why do you think, though?
Because okay, if you're, look, his track record on Israel.
Guys, if we can keep it down, please. The audience can't hear it. If you guys are speaking, the audience can. You can whisper. They want to be able to hear it. I can hear them, but I want to make sure audience can hear it as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, if you guys don't mind, I'm trying to spit hot fire up here. So Donald Trump's track record is just bending over backward for Israel and doing whatever it is that they want. And he promises that he's going to continue doing that. It is the worst part of Donald Trump's legacy, if you ask me. And hopefully he does a better job on that in a second term. But at the same time, Donald Trump still represents such a departure from the war machine, from the track that Washington, D.C. has been on for generations, that it's still enough for these Muslims who just want peace to project onto Donald Trump that maybe he would actually come in there and be a departure from the neocon consensus, whereas we all know that Kamala Harris is just going to be a continuation of the status quo, which means blindly, unconditionally supporting Israel, no matter how horrific what they do.
Dominic, you guys know Joy Reid?
Unfortunately.
She had Donald Trump's haircut. Rob, if you can show this clip of Joy Reid.
Is this video from right now?
This just happened right now.
By the way, if I wasn't here, I would be home watching MSNBC. It's the only time I ever loved to watch
By the way,
them.
if you're interested, Comcast is selling MSNBC as of yesterday.
Ooh.
If you're interested in buying MSNBC, Rob, play this clip of Joy Reid just to make Dave Smith happy. Please.
It's a pure.
Yo, and listen.
What are they going to run on?
I got to say, I love
By the way, that's embarrassing.
As you guys know, so I'm not just blowing smoke here, but if Donald Trump does win this, and the exit polls show that black men, which it looks like that black men really did walk away from the Democratic Party, what you and Kanye did changed the fucking world, man. Like, that is really incredible. This was the Democrats' most reliable voting bloc since the 1930s, man. That is an incredible thing.
It is.
If they actually woke up and were like, oh, we don't need to just be unconditionally supportive of the Democrats, who have delivered for them nothing but disaster
And
everywhere that they touch. Yeah, because when they say democracy, if you think that they mean rule of the people or free elections or something like that, it makes no sense. But it makes sense when you realize that when they say democracy, what they mean is their rule over us.
That's right.
That's all it's ever meant.
That's
Listen,
right.
they said when they were backing the coup in 2014 in Ukraine, which, by the way, is a big part of the reason why there's the war there now, the National Endowment for Democracy poured in millions of dollars to support a coup to overthrow a democratically elected president. Because democracy means DC ruling the entire world. That's all it's ever meant. It's not a real thing. Democracy is fake.
Do you know what magazine is for sale effective yesterday? Time Magazine. Do you know who owns Time Magazine? Mark Benioff. Do you know who Mark Benioff is? He owns what company? Salesforce. Do you know what his net worth is? $10.7 billion. You know who turned down an interview to Time Magazine just a month ago? Kamala Harris. You know what he bought Time Magazine for? $190 million. Do you know how many subscribers Time Magazine had when he bought him? 4 million. Do you know how many subscribers Time Magazine has today? 1.6 million.
Wow.
Do you know WAPO, when Bezos came out and says, I don't give a shit if I lose subscribers, 2.5 million subscribers, he says, I'm not endorsing Kamala. Overnight loses 200,000 subscribers, bunch of employees. LA Times loses employees. 200 papers, including USA Today, who typically would have endorsed the left, said we're not doing it. Comcast came out. They're like, look, all these other businesses we own, they're performing. Roku, performing. All these other guys are performing. Does anybody want to buy MSNBC? And I was like, no. Does anybody want to buy CNN? No, we don't want to buy them. By the way, CNN and MSNBC, celebrity people that get up there and thinking you're very important, your salary's been declining because they're no longer making money. And a reason why you're seeing these CNN people bashing Kamala, showing a clip that one page is her doing what John Kerry did in 2004, I believe, the flip-flop and stuff. Why are they doing it? If you don't, you're out of business. If you're out of business, no one's paying you. These people that are watching, they're just saying, who can I trust? No wonder Rogan's the #1 podcast in the world in 94 countries, because people trust the guy. Tucker is 2-3. Theo Vaughn may be one of the best podcasters out there. Funny as hell. Top 5. This guy Sean Ryan coming out there doing interviews, blowing up all over the place. Yourself. All these guys, why are people going to them? The market is shifting, disruption at the highest level. And a lot of these guys are used to doing this. We just got a report right now. They don't know how to do this. And American people just want to do this because you know what this is? By the way, if we right now were having dinner, our dinner sounds like a podcast. People would sit there and say, wow, what was that all about? It's a great conversation. This is what America and the world is begging for.
Yo!
Mainstream, they're done with you. You are manipulating and they're done. The market is no longer working and they're walking away. Not because we have some fancy degrees, because people trust being real and sincere. Very simple, and the market's always right.
Yeah,
you wanted to say something.
That's like one of the best rants I've ever heard, 100%. And if I could just add to that, right? Why is it, and this is the really interesting question here now, right? Because obviously you have, look, Donald Trump, the entire corporate media told you for 8 years that this guy was a Nazi and a Russian spy and a whole bunch of other lies that all basically meant you are not allowed to support this guy. And he's about to be reelected for a second term, it looks like. So that is obviously a huge rejection of this media apparatus. Of course, he did all the big podcasts. Trump did. Kamala Harris didn't want to do them. That's going to be a big part of the story here. But just one step further, right? Why is it that this happened? Think about the advantage that the corporate media had on people like us. They were years ahead of us, and they had billions of dollars of budget. Listen, Pat, obviously you got a few bucks that you made all this happen. This is pretty cool. But you don't have the budget that CNN has or the New York Times has. You have a fraction of the budget of those giant players. So why is it that the ratings for this show are crushing all those guys right now? And this is it. It's what I told Chris Cuomo when we debated, if any of you guys happen to see that. Our currency is the truth. That's our value. And the corporate legacy media has lied about everything. And when I say everything, I mean literally everything. In the 21st century alone, what did they lie about? 9/11, the wars, the financial crisis, Russiagate, COVID, Hunter Biden. Dude, just this week, they tried to convince us that Donald Trump said Liz Cheney should be executed by a firing squad. I almost voted for him twice. Turns out that was a lie. He didn't say that. We're really still hoping he says that at some point. But I'm just saying, they lie about everything.
Because they think they're smarter than the average American. And
they don't have it anymore.
But that's the lie.
Why do you think they fear Musk as much as they do, Dave?
Well, look, what Elon Musk did, and by the way, you could find a lot of quotes from Rachel Maddow and just Hillary Clinton last month blatantly said, if we don't have censorship online, we lose our control of the narrative. And you got to remember, right, it was not that long ago. I'm not saying in my grandpa's day. I'm saying in my life. In my life, the corporate media had a monopoly on information. This was up till very recently. This is such a new phenomenon. And the plan after 2016, when Trump won the first time, what they did to deal with that was they hauled in, if you remember, all the heads of social media companies, and they had Congress threaten them, basically, if you don't crack down on misinformation, Russian propaganda, which, by the way, can be anything, then we're going to shut you down. And it worked. They got all of them to start censoring people. And then Elon Musk stepped in and totally messed up their entire plan and made Twitter somewhat of a free speech platform. And so, Pat, I think you're absolutely right. Trump's essentially, I mean, yeah, he's in there, but he can't run for re-election again. He's not the real threat. But Elon Musk, you know, he said on Rogan the other day that if Kamala Harris wins, he thinks he's going to be in real trouble. I'll just say, it's still true whether Trump wins or not. Like, if we learned one thing from Trump's first 4 years, there's a whole executive branch that he does not have control of. There's 3-letter agencies that he does not have control of. Just so everyone, enjoy tonight. I'm not trying to celebrate. It looks like Trump's going to win. This is incredible. But the fight is just starting, man. It's not over. This is just the beginning, and Elon Musk is in real danger.
How you feeling with what he just said?
You know, it's funny as you talk to him, the thing that I'm thinking is that, look, and obviously it's looking very good for Donald Trump right now. If he's right and Donald Trump cracks 300, then he's got more than what did he say? He said 312 or something like that, electoral votes. I mean, then the other thing we got to look at here is how bad all the polls were again. They got this thing completely wrong. I mean, look, I think all of us have probably felt this way for about the last month. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Pat, Candace, I'm sure you guys agree with me on this, where I say everything you could tangibly measure this election by, like everything you see and feel and observe, it looked like Trump was running away with it. He had moved the culture toward him, all the big events, all the big rallies, all the big shows, and yet every goddamn pollster in this country said this was the closest election in my lifetime. It's what all of them said. And if he does crack, I mean, if he's already got this thing pretty much wrapped up, it's not even 12:30 yet, and they're saying he could crack 300 electoral votes, then this is a blowout, man. This was not a close election at all. This was exactly what it felt like, a Trump blowout. Yeah, like it's cool that Trump's gonna win, but it is so awesome that she's gonna lose. I mean, it's just so great. It's just like listen, this was always, it's reminded me of 2016 again, and the best part of Donald Trump is just watching all of the worst people in this country lose, man. And I know some people will say, like, hey, that's not a good reason to support someone just because you hate the other side. And actually, yes, it fucking is a great reason to support somebody, because have you seen the other side? They're the worst human beings in the world. And goddamn, do they deserve it.
Do you guys know what could compete for the #1 worst tweet of all time? Tell us, Dave.
Happy birthday to this future president.
Do you guys know what this is? Hillary Clinton tweets a picture of her as a kid saying happy birthday to the future president.
Yikes. It's an astounding level of arrogance.
Astounding level of arrogance.
Yeah.
We used to say to have a kid from 0 to 18 costs $245,000.
Wow.
You know, right now, to have a kid from 0 to 18 costs you nearly $400,000. So if you have 3 kids, that's $1.2 million over 18 years.
I think it cost me that much this month. Like,
how old's your kid?
I got 2 of them, and they're expensive. Listen, I mean, obviously, I will say this, right? Obviously, the price inflation has been a huge, huge issue. By the way, might not be the most popular thing to say in this room right now, but it's also a lot Donald Trump's fault. Just saying, he was for the lockdowns and printing $6 trillion in 2020. Yeah, sorry, it sucks, but you don't have a counter argument. It's true. It turns out if you shut down the economy and just print tons of money, it results in price inflation. But Biden certainly kept it going. I gotta say, here's another angle that I don't think any of us have talked about tonight, and I do find this to be very interesting. And I don't know if I have my thoughts completely flushed out on it, but the young left-wingers, the 20-something-year-olds, are not the shock troops for the regime that they were in 2016. Like, I don't know, Donald Trump spoke at Madison Square Garden, and there were like 100 people protesting. If he had spoken in 2016 at Madison Square Garden, there would have been massive protests with, you know, fights outside and this whole thing. And I do think a big part of it is that the young left-wingers have spent this whole year protesting the war in Gaza. And it just wasn't that easy to get them to snap out of that protest and then snap into protesting on behalf of the people whose genocide you've been protesting for the whole last year. And I gotta say, I mean, we'll learn more with exit polls and stuff, but it really hurt Kamala Harris that she was tied to this regime and they're supporting Israel conducting this war and genocide. This war that is viewed as a genocide by the majority of Democratic voters. a very tough square
Well,
to
I'm
circle.
voting for Trump because he supports Israel. So let's go. Woo!
Well, also, it was binary. When Trump was president, there was more peace over there now than it is now. I mean,
Yeah,
they
no,
are
listen,
really,
by the way, obviously I disagree with you with your position on Israel, but I'm just saying, forget the fact that you have one opinion on Israel.
He's saying why
and I
people
have a
didn't
different.
vote for Kamala.
I'm saying, in terms of analysis of this situation, I think it really hurt Kamala Harris, like that her administration was tied to this. And I'm saying, I think the young left-wingers, it's much more difficult to get them like outraged about Donald Trump when they've spent a year protesting what they view as a genocide. And by the way, they're right more than you are. Just kidding. No, I mean, I'm not kidding, but just thought it was funny.
No, it's just the fact that when Trump was there, it was more peaceful. It was never really peaceful, but it was just more peaceful. Tens of thousands of people weren't dying, and he says he'll stop the carnage on both sides. And I think that's why both sides kind of want him in there. At least he'll stop the killing, and hopefully, if that happens, we can find some type of settlement, some type of deal to stop this in perpetuity. Hopefully.
Listen, amen. It turns out peace is more popular than war.
Yeah.
Who would have
Yes.
guessed?
Yes.
Yeah.
Peace, and he's a strong man, and most people are afraid
Dave,
to
what did you just say? You
attack
said
because of him.
more popular? I didn't hear.
He said peace is more popular than war.
You know, I will say I don't think Kamala Harris has quite what Hillary Clinton had. Like when we were just showing that tweet, that like she hasn't for decades thought that this was her destiny to be president. She just got subbed in a few months ago. Like, for all, I don't know, she might be relieved, honestly. Like, she was not up to the job at all. Like, there might be. So I would, look, it is a little preemptive for Donald Trump to give a victory speech already, but that would also make it pretty awesome if he was just like, no, I'm calling it. I'm president again.
But
it would be a
guys-
very Trumpian thing to do.
But look, I got a question, and maybe y'all will know the answer. Who's been running the government? Because we know Joe Biden's crazy. We know that. And we know Kamala Harris, now, she ain't got good sense. Who's been driving the ship? Who's been flying the plane?
By the way,
Barack
isn't
Obama.
it's the biggest indictment of Kamala Harris that we all know Joe Biden isn't running the government, and not one person suspects that she is. Not one person thinks, I know who's really in charge, Kamala Harris. Like, no, there's no way. And I don't know if it's his national security advisor or his chief of staff or who exactly is making the calls.
We don't have any idea.
But it definitely ain't her.
No, it's
there's
not her.
no way. Pat, you made just getting at, which I don't think we've really talked about. So, it's funny because Trump is the most interesting and transformational political figure in modern American history. And so there's so much to say about him. But so much of this race just comes down to conventional politics thing. How about the fact that, did you guys see, however you feel about him, did you guys see J.D. Vance on Rogan the other day?
Amazing.
It's over.
Look, Harris headquarter and Trump headquarter. See the difference.
Oh, yeah, there you go. But over 3 hours, the dude is super smart, very impressive, however you feel about him. She picked a VP who added nothing to her campaign. And he picked like a strong VP who could actually help him and could go on Sunday news shows and make good arguments. I mean, it's just, if you just look at it on paper, you'd go, dude, they pulled Joe Biden out way too late in the game. They stuck in the worst candidate for her. Then they went on like a 2-month gaslighting tour where they just tried to convince everybody that she was Barack Obama in 2007 or something like that. It was all just so ridiculous.
It was very crazy. But going back to Tim Walz, because I did forget about him, I never really understood that VP pick. So does anybody have any ideas about why Tim Walz was ever
essentially my idiocracy theory on it, which isn't very interesting. Barack Obama was such a narcissist that he had to pick the dullard Joe Biden to be his VP because he didn't want anyone who would outshine him. Joe Biden is so insecure because even before he went senile, he was never very bright. And so he picked Kamala Harris, someone who could give him identity points but wouldn't outshine him. And then Kamala Harris is so insecure that she had to pick someone who wouldn't outshine her. And now we've gotten to like 13 levels of stupid from where we started from.
The guy's name is Tampon Tim.
Yeah, I mean,
Nickname's Tampon Tim. Class A pervert.
You could get I mean, I think that's basically it. But he's a real weird guy, that Walz.
man.
We're going to find out weird stuff about him in the future.
And to not even address them. To say, at least if you're saying we're not going to concede, have the strength to come out and say that yourself. Say, listen, this race is not over. Say something reassuring. I find that to be fundamentally weak and a further display of the many reasons why she was never qualified to be the president of the United States of America.
I agree. I hope Kamala Harris never concedes and she storms the Capitol on January 6th by herself.
I don't want to say a masculine woman, but women genetically are more maternal, more caring, more empathetic.
Correct.
And if you're the president of the United States, you have to be a beast. Yeah. You can't be overly emotional. Oh, I can't address tonight. I'm too sensitive. Oh, I'm on my period. I'm hormonal. You can't have that.
You're 100% right. I mean, if you think about Margaret
See, I wasn't going to be
Thatcher-
controversial, but
no,
you just
I
went
did it for
ahead.
you.
No, but I think
women have periods,
but
guys.
Look, it is a weird thing that people have trouble being honest about this, and it's stuff that we all know. Look at Golda Meir, look at Margaret Thatcher. These were the most masculine women
And
you
that's
could
okay
imagine.
if it's a
And that's-
masculine woman.
Listen, it's a masculine position. It's commander-in-chief. What are we pretending that that's not like a masculine role? Listen. When I drive my 5-year-old to her kindergarten, if a male teacher answered the door, I'd be like, what? No. Who's that guy? Get him out of here.
No, but
it's a bunch of women
yeah.
because that's who I trust to teach my little girl.
Right.
I don't know. And I'm not saying no woman could be the president, but yeah, that is a hurdle to overcome. That you'd have to prove that you have that kind of like masculine characteristic because
I
it's
think
not
Hillary
being...
was a bit masculine, not in a bad way, in a beast way.
Yes, she was.
Little bit, yeah.
And she
It's
is
not
a
that
closet.
uncommon.
You know, she is butch closet. Everyone
Yeah.
knows what she's up to. But the point is that is important to talk about, and I think that's one of the things that people are afraid to say because they're worried about the media and what are you saying that a woman can't? And this is one of the things actually that Dr. Jordan Peterson kind of brilliantly discussed when that viral clip of him when he was debating that woman and she asked the question, you know, why I'm making up a number
Yes.
here, 90% of
Yes.
the CEOs all men. And he said, why would a woman want to do that? Why would you want to work 80 hours a week? Why would you want to do these things? You make it seem like this is something that's admirable, like you should want to take on this job. And the reality is I very much believe in traditional roles. I think the majority of women are good at traditionally feminine roles. Hence your point about like if a guy was like, I just really want to be a nanny for kids. I'm like, I don't like it.
Of Friends.
I just don't like it. We naturally
that
trust
episode?
women to the care of children in the same way that we naturally trust men to the care of protecting us, you know, protecting the nation, protecting us when something happens, protecting us if there's a break-in.
Well, look, man, it's as simple as like if someone was breaking into my house in the middle of the night and I told my wife to go handle it.
Yeah, it's weird.
Everybody in this room would immediately, you just lose all respect for me. You're like, you're just a failure as a person.
Yeah.
Because we all understand that, like, no, in that situation, that's my job. That's my role.
I feel like
and so
Doug Emhoff asks Kamala to kill the spiders in the house. I feel like that's the type of dude he is.
You might be right about that. But there is something there where, and it's something that nobody talks about honestly, but women know this.
I
Like,
think
women know this
can't
more than
speak
men
about
do.
it.
Dave, what are you thinking now? Are you surprised, relieved? Where are you at?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess not. Look, it seemed like this is where it's going through the whole night. I'm really not surprised. It's a remarkable night in American history. I don't know what to say other than that. It's truly incredible. This guy, we've never seen anything like the opposition that Donald Trump has faced. Certainly not in my lifetime. I'm 41. There's never been anything like it in my lifetime, where you have a former president who has the entire deep state, both the establishment of both political parties, the entire media, all of Hollywood, all of the big donors, all against him. And the fact that he was somehow able to put this campaign together and pull it off, it speaks to his ability. It speaks to how truly just terrible at this the Democrats have become. I mean, it's just like, it's really... You know, we were just like saying this. You could not imagine that on January 6th, of 2021 that a few years later Donald Trump would take the White House back and take it in what, I'm sorry guys, this is a blowout. This isn't a close election. This is a landslide. It's listen, this is a new chapter in American history. And hey, I got to say this, although I disagree with a lot of his politics, you know, the last thing Cenk Uygur said, he was right about that. We shouldn't have loyalty to Donald Trump. We should never have loyalty to any politician. They are to be our servants. That's the way America works, okay? They call them public servants because the idea is that they work for us. And we've gotten away from that over the last 100 years or so. But you know what? Listen, Donald Trump did some good things in his first term, and he made a lot of mistakes. And it is our job to push him to be better this term. Like that, you know, tonight, enjoy the win, everybody celebrate. But like starting tomorrow, that should be the attitude, that we have expectations for what he's going to get done. Look, if the Republicans took the Senate tonight and Donald Trump wins a landslide, build the freaking wall already, man. Like, no excuses. Like, let's ask, and dear Lord, can we get out of this disaster in Ukraine? Why the hell is any of our money going toward it? And that's the type of stuff we should be holding him accountable toward.
So it's a very good message you're giving.
I don't think they're going to be able to get away with anything like that. I think they're going to have to try to undermine him in other ways like they did in his first term. Listen, man, this is part of the gig, and this is part of what Donald Trump's learning experience from the first time should have been. You know, I think Donald Trump, you know, you say you want to drain the swamp. All right. You know what you're talking about, right? You're talking about rolling back the most entrenched power interests in the history of the world. So that's not an easy task, and they're going to come at him. If he really is there to drain the swamp, they're going to come at him with everything they've got. You know, Tucker Carlson said, if you want to do this job, you got to be ready to die for it. And I think that's no joke, so we'll see.
It's a dangerous time.
It's a what?
It's a dangerous time. This time between now and his inauguration is a dangerous time. And he's going to need all of his supporters behind him to let them know that if they try some crazy stuff, that the Second Amendment exists for a reason.
Look, man, this is already such a huge win. And, you know, presidential elections are largely symbolic. Do any of you guys, you know, you might know this, but do you know the story of when the Pope visited the Soviet Union? Okay, so the Pope visited the Soviet Union, what was it, in the late 70s, I think, something like that? Is it 80s? So the Pope visits the Soviet Union. You probably know this better than I do, but the rough story of it is that the Pope finally is allowed in to come visit, and like just hundreds of thousands of people show up for the Pope. And then it let all these people in the Soviet Union be kind of like, oh, I'm not the only one. Oh, there's a lot more of me. Like, it was like presidential elections are largely symbolic, but that doesn't mean they're not meaningful. That means a lot. And this symbol right here that you're looking at right there of every power center in the United States of America telling you you're not allowed to support this guy. And then the American people saying, no, screw you, that's our guy. That is just incredibly powerful, man. Like, no matter what else happens, it's powerful that we don't believe them. We don't trust them. We know that they're all a bunch of liars.
But I think there's a faction of people, Dave, that kind of are a little bit burned out with Trump versus Kamala, Biden versus Trump, all this other stuff. Who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. What do you think?
Well, you know, so the point that you made about CNN's and MSNBC's ratings, right? It is certainly true that during Trump's first term, he was very good for their business. I am not convinced that it's going to work the same way again. And I think that one of the listen, so much of what drove those ratings was the Russiagate nonsense. And they were saying that they had the biggest story in the biggest scandal in the history of the United States of America. I mean, no exaggeration. They were saying that that a foreign power overturned our elections and that the current sitting president of the United States of America was in on it. Like, he was involved in a conspiracy with the Russians to overturn the election. I mean, that's a big story if true. And everybody who hated Donald Trump, it was just handed to them. Like, here's a new thing. You don't even have to feel like you lost the election. Guess what? You didn't. They cheated. And then when that turned out to be all lies, And then, you know, on top of that, like the Hunter Biden story, but really the biggest one is COVID. Getting COVID wrong the whole way through, it's why the media had no power this election cycle to say, hey, this guy's a Nazi or whatever. Everyone's like, yeah, dude, we've figured you out. And I really don't think they're going to be able to recreate that. I don't know. I think it's going to be very hard for the anti-Trump people to recreate the same hysteria of 2017, like the Me Too hysteria and all that. I think it's going to be very hard to recreate that because we've already seen through the bullshit. So they're going to try. I really don't. I don't know how successful
They're not
it's gonna be.
creative. They're just not that creative.
Yeah.
They're just not.
Right.
I love my Assyrians. I love my
Anybody?
Assyrians.
I'm sorry. Listen, this is all nice and good, but is nobody going to give a shout out to the true MVP of this year's presidential race, which is Joe Biden, man, sticking around just long enough to make it impossible for whoever filled in for him.
He really did win. He won.
Just insisting.
What a great
that
point.
He was insisting that he wasn't too old when everyone around him knew he was. Man, do they not just deserve to lose for that alone? That they threw this poor senile old man into a debate with Donald Trump?
Dave, how do you think he's feeling tonight? How do you think Jill Biden's feeling right now?
Oh, he has no idea what year it is.
What's going on?
He has no. But,
vindicated.
by the way, this is where he really sealed their fate. Okay, and we may never know. There'll be books written about this for decades to come. But he sealed their fate by endorsing Kamala Harris in the tweet, separate from the letter that he resigned with. He endorsed her through a tweet. And who knows if Joe Biden even sent that? Does anyone here think Joe Biden knows how to use Twitter? Who knows who sent that tweet? But someone did, and they endorsed her, and then they couldn't have an open primary. They couldn't have a contested convention. They had to just go with her, and it sunk them right
But you
there.
know-
By the way, it's a trick question because Donald Trump doesn't know how long he's going to speak for. He's just going to get up there and do what he always does. He'll figure it out. He's just going to get up there, start
I know,
talking.
but what do you think? How long do you think it's going to be?
My guess for this is not going to be long. I'd say 20 minutes.
I was going to say 25 minutes.
But it's Donald Trump. He could
I'm
go
taking
for an
the
hour.
You know, Trump's winning the popular vote for the first time, and the Republican has won the popular vote in a very long time.
Is that official?
Did Trump win the popular vote?
Well, I mean,
winning it now.
listen, we have. That's going to take a little while to think because you got to think 100% of everywhere has to come in.
Exactly.
But he's up by what was he up? 5 million votes right now.
Yeah.
6 million. I mean, wow, dude, that's
amazing.
pretty incredible. Mm-hmm. And it's just so great for the country that there is a price to pay for what the Democrats tried to do.
Exactly.
That you just can't do that.
Right.
Like the fact that he didn't win the popular vote in 2016 or 2020, but he's up by nearly 6 million votes right now. It's just a message to Democrats. Yeah, you got to do better than this. You will lose very bad if you run this type of campaign.